For the first 55 minutes of our meeting today, we had a closed session, and we are now back into open session. We have before us the agenda that has been given to us. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda that will also accompany the consent agenda being moved to our October 17th meeting? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries. The first matter of business that I believe we have on today is E1, is the update on the CCS and the Kannapolis City School Systems Qualified School Construction Bonds. Typically, Cabarrus provides it to us at our work session. Is that going to be the same today? Okay. Or not at a work session, but at our regular session. And Kannapolis, would you like to present it to us now? Sure. Great. Thanks, Will. If you'll come on up. This is on page 6 of our.
Okay, we're still moving along on our qualified school construction bonds. Met with the roofing engineers last week, and they looked at our Kannapolis Intermediate School, did some roof penetrations, looked at the structure of a roof, and are developing their design. Met with the electrical, mechanical engineer last week, and we're getting close to hopefully being able to bid at least one of those projects very soon. I've met with the civil engineers on 2 parking lots, and still waiting on their design proposal. So kind of a holding pattern there. Okay. We had hoped to do some architectural work. We are probably going to do a budget amendment on that, though, and move it to the civil. The parking lots look like they're going to cost a little bit more than anticipated, and those are a higher priority project than the architectural work. The architectural work was a relatively small job at Fred L. Wilson, which would have provided drawings for a couple of storage rooms. We will try to do that through alternate financing, hopefully through capital maintenance agreement or something like that, because it was a smaller project. So moving right along, we have our 10% obligated through the mechanical and roofing engineers. So feel confident about that, and looking forward to starting to bid some of the work and hopefully get started. That's about where we're at right now.
Any questions for Mr. Crabtree? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Wicke, you typically do it at the regular session. Do you want to present something now, or would you like to do it at our regular session?
Actually, I would like to do it now. I sort of started off doing it at work session, got out of sync because of some other issues.
Okay.
But if you have a moment, and
we certainly do.
Can entertain me, I appreciate it. I have updated the forms, and hopefully you've got the latest ones.
You talking about the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes, we have that, and then that's also backed up by another document that I'll get to in a minute. But this form has now been changed with discussions not only with your financial group, with Pam's office, but also our own. So we now have it coordinated so it reflects pretty much the status of all of the dollars in all of the projects at this time. There are obviously projects we've bid. There are some projects that we've eliminated from, and we've talked about those, the ones at the 2 high schools where we'll be doing that using other monies. But at any given point, and this will be an ongoing thing, of course, as we continue to report to you, you'll have literally a monthly response, or monthly update, rather, as to where the dollars are at in any and all of the budgets. And I think this goes to some of the questions that the board of the commissioners had in the past. So I believe it's self-explanatory. We will identify as we move through here if we need to move dollars around. Clearly, we have to get approval from DPI to do that, but we will also bring those before your commission and our board to make certain that everyone's aware of what's going on. As we've talked about in the past, Will just alluded to it as well. Things are changing. Budgets are sort of being stretched as cost of materials and timing push these projects pretty hard. So far, we've been holding our own, but as we talked about in the past presentation from last month, we have prioritized things. In case we do run out of money, we wanted to do the highest priority projects first. Certainly our hope is to do as many as possible, but the reality is we just don't know that we'll get to the very last projects at the bottom of that list. We will certainly do whatever we can to accomplish it. If you scroll down, and I'll certainly answer any questions along the way, but I just wanted to point out that as you scroll down and get to the next file, no. Oh, okay. Well, oh, I'm sorry. There's a different page. Excuse me.
That?
Yes, no, that should be, there's a, that's the correct one. Yes, thank you. This document is similar to the prioritization list that you've seen in terms of how the projects are listed, but then you will also see that we've now included a complete estimate of the schedules for each of the projects. So in terms of when we plan to bid things, and I will say that it's somewhat fluid. Obviously, things may bog down depending on how the design goes or how the investigative work goes during design. But our hopes are that we can maintain this schedule and keep it as close to what is identified here as possible. But this, too, will be updated on a monthly basis for your perusal. And with that, I guess I would I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Whitkey?
And I do want to apologize. I did get this to you very late today, that it was under development and we were modifying it as we went, so we didn't really finish it till this morning. In the future, now that the forms are somewhat pretty well set, we'll just be modifying numbers and updating things, so we should have these well in advance to you ahead of your meeting. I did mention, much like Mr. Crabtree, that we have expended the 10% fund, so we're well in keeping with that guideline of the requirements for QSCB, and we are in the process of, we're hoping to bid 3 or 4 projects in the next 4 to 5 weeks, so we should have things moving very nicely along. We hope to bid all of the chiller work this winter as well, so a lot of the major projects will be underway and being bid in the next few months.
Is there a requirement to file a report by the 15th?
I just confirmed that there is not this morning. I talked to Mr. Johnny Clark, who was standing in for Mary Spradling at DPI, and he said that the feds can always come back to you and audit you, and obviously you should be at that point, but he said there is actually no report to be filed. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Whitkey. Thank you, Mr. Crabtree.
Thank you.
Next that we have is under new business, page 28, which is Cabarrus County Schools request for use of qualified school construction bond contractor sales tax. Mrs. Klutz, if you'll please come up and let us know what you got.
Okay. Good evening. I'm making a request on behalf of Cabarrus County Schools Board of Education. The sales tax for the qualified school construction bonds generally is applied to the annual debt payment as normal practice. We are requesting, because our projects are coming over the budgets, we are requesting that sales tax be applied back to the project so that we can continue down the project list. Right now, we are anticipating and holding back approximately $1.3 million of those projects that we do not think that we're going to be able to get to. The amount of the sales tax on these projects is a minimal amount as compared to the normal construction debt. It's hard to tell you exactly what it's going to be because it's only applied to the labor, to the materials. It's not applied to the labor. It could be $100,000, maybe 200's probably pushing it. It's going to be a minor amount. But we're just asking that you consider applying it to the project, not to the debt payment, because we will not get through the project list. And it's not something that you have to decide right now. You can, as I talked with Ms. Dubois, those funds will be held into an account, and as we get through the bidding, you can make that decision and see what projects are left, and you can make that decision at that point if you'd like.
Any questions for Mrs. Klutz?
I think it makes sense to hold it until we know exactly where the bids are coming in and what the funds are, and everything. I would say that if we do it for Cabarrus County schools, we should do it for Kannapolis City schools and treat both systems the same in this regard. But I would say that I'm good with, I don't know if we don't make a decision now, then we should table this until, and just give staff direction to hold it out as you're going to do anyway, and then make that decision once we get through the project list, or is it better to go ahead and make a decision now?
One suggestion, we currently do put it into a contra sales tax account, so it will be segregated. But currently, right now, you have Mike Downs authorized to make change orders to the projects, and if we get down to that point where they place all those bids in, that could be something else that you could give him the authority to decide. Some of the projects that Ms. Klutz showed me may be beneficial that those projects be done at a point in time once a bid is coming in. Like if they're working on a gymnasium expansion and then they may need to do some other expansion, putting all the equipment on site and using the same architect may be more cost effective at that point. But I think once they get to that point that they could bid those projects out with both options, and then Mike and Lynn or Mike and Will can sit down and evaluate it and make that decision at that point in time of whether it's the most cost-effective thing to do. It will be an immaterial amount. Ms. Farrington pulled some information together. I think we were somewhere between $300,000 to maybe $600,000 when we built a brand new school. So we will not be talking about a substantial amount of money as far as being able to apply it towards debt service. It's just an option that's available for them to be able to continue some of those projects. So it's at the board's discretion, but that's one avenue that will allow Mr. Downs to make those decisions as they go through, and I think that process has been working very well so far and allowing them to expedite those projects.
What's the is there a dollar amount that we allow you to make a decision on without board action?
In this process here, it's been up to $25,000.
So would this money be held in the account through the duration of the Cube Scab project, or will allot some money all along? Is that
The option I was proposing that is if you gave Mr. Downs the authority, he could allot it as they went along.
would that fall under the 25,000 potentially, or is that?
If that's the
Yeah,
amount.
you're going to earn this sales tax refund on each project. So you got a couple of different ways to look at it. You can allow them to continue down their priority list and continue to use money as needed to fulfill those obligations all the way down through it, and then use what's remaining at the end to take what's to put towards the remaining list of projects. Or you can, as the sales tax is refunded for a particular project, you could go ahead and agree that money within that project can go back into that program as well. So you can do it a couple different ways. As long as your current process now is they've got their priority list and they're using their money as they go down. As long as you're okay with them to continue to do that, and then whatever the resulting list at the bottom that doesn't get fulfilled, then we can use the sales tax at the bottom to start nipping at that list as well. Either way, I don't think either way is going to hold them up. Either way, as long as you're allowing them to continue on and using the money as needed as they start to go down the list. So.
Commissioner Burge?
If you're going to use debt service money for construction, how are you going to make it up?
You're not. I mean, I like the idea. I think that it's better served if we use the sales tax to pay off the debt as opposed to paying off, even if it's $10,000, is what we've saved or realized in a project, we should then apply towards that debt service.
I agree.
So
You're talking more interest if you keep running out the debt.
now the difference, and I will, the difference in the qualified school construction bonds and what we have right now is the interest that we're borrowing this money ends up at the end of the day being at about 0.75%.
It's 0.07.
Okay, so it's less than 1%.
And it's only on half of the debt. The other half of the debt, we got full reimbursement from the federal government on that other half.
Right, because of our rating and because of what it's fallen under, it's less than 1% that we're borrowing the money. Just so that you're right, Commissioner Burridge, is that there is a cost to borrowing that money. We just need to recognize it's not what the typical costs are when money is borrowed.
Well, and I agree that normally that's what we do, is we use it towards the debt service payments. These are pretty much zero, just about zero interest financing. We have to pay back the principal, but there isn't a lot of, there's very minimal interest at all that we have to pay back on these. If we don't do them now, we're going to do them eventually. The list is going to stay there. So, at this point, Commissioner Caruth is not here. I would make a motion to place this on the agenda, on the new business agenda, at our regular session, so that we can continue the discussion with him here and make a determination which way to do. I think these are special.
Do you want to put that on new business for the 17th,
Yeah.
or do you want to
New
do it
business for the 17th.
the next work session as a discussion item for
I'd
work?
put it on new business for the 17th,
Okay.
so that he's here. He can look at it. We'll have plenty of information, and we can go ahead and give. They're going to start putting things out for bid. The only thing that I would suggest is that the motion be that it's for both school districts, Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools. I know they haven't requested it, but I think we should treat them fairly. Whichever way we go, they should be treated the same.
We have a motion to place this under new business for October the 17th. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you all. Next is new business is the Rotary Park, Union Street, Corbin, page 31.
Good afternoon.
Mr. King? Mr. Herman? I believe there's also a slideshow. Is that?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Let me get the right page on that. That's page 93 of our agenda.
Right. And my name is Brian King. I'm the current Concord Rotary Club president, and this is Mark Hermans, and he's currently serving as our local projects committee chairperson. And first of all, I wanted to thank you all for giving us this time. We met with this work session back in July to present you with our idea for our local project we've been calling it Rotary Square on the corner of Union and Corbin. And me never doing anything like this before, nor our Rotary Club taking on a project this big, I did want to say thank you to a lot of the staff at the county that's helped us navigate through this process. A lot of the things that you guys gave us to think about back in July, I'm happy to say that we think we're prepared for you guys to vote so that we can move forward. Kyle and Mike Downs, Jonathan Marshall, Londa Strong, Aaron Newton, and David Goforth all were very helpful. And our committees along the way have also put a lot of hard work in this so far. We had our exploratory committee to identify the project before the July session, and then we've had some architects, Bill Hughes and Ken Griffin, that's done a lot of work helping us design the thing. And we've had some of the builders in our club to help us come up with some estimates as far as cost goes. Our fundraising committee's done a lot of work thus far, and they're teed up and ready to go on this. And we've since also met with the City of Concord Development Review Committee, the Water, Sewer, Electrical, Traffic Engineering, et cetera. and they had very little comment. There were a couple things they asked us to address and work on, and we've since addressed those, but there was very little comment on that. A lot of folks, we've done a lot of research with other municipalities looking at other urban spaces downtown. For example, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, Boulder, Wilmington, North Carolina. We've taken a lot of pictures and done a lot of research there. And the other big thing we've done, and I know this has been a big concern, is we've been trying to educate a lot of the community, especially those that would be directly affected. I have really, we met with St. James Lutheran Church across the street, been in good contact with them, a lot of the historical Concord neighbors, and we've been in contact with sort of the folks along South Union Street that are very, very close, and the folks on Washington Lane back there, and then the Winecoff Hills neighborhood, a lot of the community right here downtown. And we've also been in touch with the Downtown Development Corporation, and I think we've got a lot of support from it. And obviously, if we didn't have any support, I wouldn't think we could raise the money out of the community. But just to let you know, since then we've done a lot, and we've been meeting with the farmers markets people, Piedmont Farmers Market, and I think that a lot of the things that you guys told us to look at, we've done thus far. So I wanted to give you sort of more conceptual ideas by this slideshow. So Commissioner White, if you would just flip to the next page. Really, I've just got some pictures for you. This was a picture taken. It's sort of an example of a riverfront farmers market in Wilmington, and it just shows hours on Saturdays. They've got plants. They had a little guitarist set up there. They have this every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. That doesn't necessarily mean that would be our hours, but obviously our Piedmont's farmers market would determine that. But you can go to the next slide. Part of the reason why we want to do this is to help provide our downtown area with yet another reason why people would come downtown, and it would be a good economic benefit. It would help with the buy local efforts and just be yet another destination. If you can flip it again, this example of Piedmont Farmers Market. You can go to the next one. This is, if you'll notice right there in the middle, you see that circle, probably about a 40-foot diameter circle. That can be turned off and on at any time. And the folks that we've talked to about this, this is basically a splash pad. And what we envision is 24 jets or water jets that would only squirt 3 at a time, alternating. And obviously it can be set to certain hours and be turned off at any time. And it would probably only be operated 3 months out of the year between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So you can see behind there a very nice structure that would be provided as a shelter. That's just one example. If you can flip it again, Commissioner White. And that's the one in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. That's just another example of a nice looking, we don't want to build anything unattractive because this is our county seat and our downtown area. Growing up here, I'm proud of this community, so I want to make sure we build something very nice. If you'll flip it again. This is at North Lake Mall. This is exactly what the fountain would look like, minus maybe some of the planters or the benches. We don't know exactly how that would be configured at this point, but if you just picture that flat space that could be turned off for gathering spaces, only during certain hours and during the summer months would those jets actually be alternating, and you can just envision children playing along the greenway there. You can flip it. This is a Pearl Street Mall in Boulder, Colorado. This is their downtown area, and at the end of the downtown area they've got this little splash pad, and you can see they've got markets out in some certain days, and these fountains here. Obviously Boulder's a cold place, so they don't operate that year round. But this is sort of the example of how you don't want to think of it as a water park because we don't want it to be a water park. We just kind of want it to be a little extra draw to downtown that would accentuate the greenway and accentuate that marketplace. and that's my sister-in-law in front of the one in Piedmont Park. That's a little bit bigger than the one we envision, and we wouldn't be using that much water either. And then this is just a picture of a little girl playing in the fountain to give you kind of an idea of the fountain. So the bottom line is on this whole thing is we just envision a nice open air, you can call it a pedestrian mall or an urban improvement on that square for folks to have. We did send a list of, an overview of some things that, kind of the plans that we had for it. It would be constructed solely with private funds and in-kind donations raised by our Rotary Club. Be designed by licensed architects and engineers to be attractive, safe, durable, and low maintenance. I don't know if I need to read all this, guys. Yeah, there's
Right there.
Yeah, that's it, Jay. Yeah. The county would continue to own the Rotary Square property at the corner of South Union Street and Corbin with a restriction to be recorded limiting the property to use as Rotary Square. We've talked to Wassac, and their board has agreed last month to maintain the pumps and water features of the Rotary Square at no cost to the county, which I think is nice. We're really trying to limit any kind of maintenance cost to the fountain, and I think that's a nice thing. The county will maintain Rotary Square once it's complete. The county will have no financial obligation for Rotary Square other than minimal ongoing maintenance. And part of the design, we were told they didn't want to do any more maintenance than, much more maintenance than what's going on now. And we're, being mindful of that during the design process. And so again, the utilization for Rotary Square we've talked about. We want to design it to just discourage loitering. A lot of the comments that we've had from some of the neighbors is they really don't want it to be a place of loitering, but anything downtown you can't not do something. There are too many pluses that offset any negativity that could happen there. So I just there's only so many things you can do about that, but we would try to design it to discourage that. Rotary Square promotes county's efforts to encourage tourism, local agricultural, small businesses, and local spending. It's a perfect use for the property and adds a beautiful, engaging, family-friendly focal point to downtown at no cost to the county. And it's has the support of the City of Concord, the Downtown Development Corp., St. James Lutheran Church. I don't want to say they support it because it's not like they're not objecting to it. And Wassac, Piedmont Farmers Market, we've got a lot of donors tied up or teed up already to help with the funding of it, and a lot of downtown property owners and stakeholders. And then I think it will be a lasting legacy for the county and our club and all those involved. And then one of our Rotarians, Zach Moretz, put this on there. It just says it will build goodwill and better friendships and will be beneficial to all concerned, which is an essential element of our four-way test. And that's what we seek to promote. So, I hope you guys see that we put a lot of thought into it and wanted to open it up for questions. I hope I didn't talk too long. I've never done this.
Any questions for Mr. King or Mr. Hermans?
Rich, what is the legal way to use county property in a partnership like this? Is it a deed restriction? Is it a land lease for $1 a year and other consideration? Because we would have to make sure that the county's protected and they're protected if they're doing an investment.
Zach Moretz had called me about this, and we talked about some different ways to structure it, but decided it was premature to go too far into that until the board had an opportunity to consider it. There are a number of different ways to do it. I think what they're proposing is that the county would continue to own it, and they would essentially just operate that project. They would construct it, and it presumably would belong to the county with a deed restriction that it would only be used for that purpose. But essentially it would be operated by Rotary or by Wassac or whoever, and that certainly can be done by agreement. I think we'd want to stay away from a lease. That, under the statutes, that creates a situation where it might have to be placed for public bidding.
Commissioner
Or
Burge?
any sort of long-term lease.
What liability does this bring to the county?
Well, presumably we'd take care of that in any written agreement that we had concerning it, that liability would be the responsibility of the Rotary Club or whoever's actually operating it. We'd have some indemnification provisions and probably some standard provisions concerning carrying insurance to cover those kind of risks. That's what we typically do in contracts with third parties in behalf of the county.
Has anybody considered the actual maintenance cost to the county to upkeep on it?
That's what I was going to get
Yep.
into.
So the county would carry insurance if somebody fell and broke a leg because they were running around in the water fountain. Are you suggesting that the Rotary Club would carry a liability policy that would cover that?
Whoever the actual operator is, if it's going to be the Rotary Club, then yes, we, in our contract with them, would require that they maintain insurance and certain designated coverage amounts to cover that risk and also to indemnify the county should the county be brought into some claim that's made by someone who's injured in that facility. And that's the standard that we typically do. The county is self-insured for at least a certain amount, so we try to be pretty careful about that.
Before we, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I think the intent of the Rotary Club has always been for us to not actually maintain it because we obviously don't have the capability to maintain that. And some of the earlier meetings that we had, we envisioned the county, and Londa smacked me in the back of the head if I'm speaking out of turn at all, but we sort of envision the county parks actually handling maybe the scheduling of it. One of the things about that fountain is that we'd put it on a timer, and I think any usage of it would just simply be booked through the county.
It would be the counties to operate,
Yeah,
basically.
that's what we had.
Okay, so they're saying that the county would be the one insuring any activities that goes on there. If somebody falls and gets hurt in a water fountain, they're saying that they're not going to be responsible for it. We would be responsible for it. Is that right?
We're assuming that the liability would be the same as it is today. If somebody falls out there this afternoon, wherever that liability falls today, it would fall in the future. All we
Well,
want
the
to do
chance
is,
of falling on grass would be different than the chance of falling in a water fountain.
I recognize that, but we're not proposing to change any of that.
Well,
we couldn't handle that.
I look at it, I think that it's premature for us to decide today, but I think that, to me, the questions that need to be answered is the liability issue, which Rotary Club says they want us to continue to have the liability.
Yes.
The ownership issue, I think, can be worked through. One of the things I'm concerned about is the zoning issue, is that right now there's a conditional use for that property, if I remember correctly, and the zoning would need to be changed, so that needs to be worked out as to who's going to charge for getting the zoning changed if it goes forward. The management, Rotary Club, is telling us that they want our Parks and Rec to manage it so that, then we talk about the issues that come along with parks is that although there's not a federal issue, we as a board have made a policy issue that sex offenders are not to use our parks. How would that be monitored in this situation? So I think that needs to be looked at. In regards to the management of it is who gets called at 3 o'clock in the morning when the water valve is shooting off, and how does that get monitored? I know that driving into work, there's some issues that I see some businesses with the sprinkler system just flooding water, and we need to work through that issue is how that gets addressed. I don't know if WASAC would take over that or how they. I think that's an issue that needs to be settled.
Go ahead.
I think that
They've agreed to take
they've
on all
taken the water
maintenance
issue.
responsibility for the fountain.
so that I know that they'll take it is so that if there's an issue in regards to a broken valve, anything,
that's
weather
correct.
time,
Replacement parts, all
24/7, as they would be called.
That's correct.
Let's see.
And
I think that if this board is willing to move forward, that in moving forward, if we're going to be responsible for the maintenance we need to understand what materials are going to be used, because with some of the designs that we've seen in conceptual, is it awnings? Is it roofing? Is it, how long life expectancy of those? The rotary signia, if the proper materials are not used, what if it fades? Who's going to replace it? Who's going to make certain it stays up? In regards to the structure itself, is it pavers? Is it concrete? I mean, these are things that y'all may have those answers to, but I think we just need to work through those issues to make certain that when they have to be replaced, it is from the beginning, it's a product that we're comfortable with, of getting it replaced in the end, that we know if we're going to move forward, is it going to be a 3-year replacement, or is it going to be a 5-year replacement, or is it 20 years, depending on the quality of product that's put into it at the beginning. Y'all may already y'all sound like y'all have had a lot of those issues done. We're not privy to that, which is fine, but I think it's Kyle Billifer, it's people on staff that needs to know this is what the maintenance issues are going to be if we use product A, product B, or product C, and these may have already been decided. In regards to the water usage, I don't know about the cost of the water. I don't know how much, I don't know how much is used, so that if Wasac's taking all of that.
Well, Wasac would be taking on the maintenance, and that is one. The water issue is something that we're currently working on with the City of Concord. We know the water usage is very minimal. One of the things we're discussing, and this is going to be worked out very, very soon, is how that would, the cost of the water, but the usage of the water, because there's really 3 jets that use 1.75 gallons per minute that would go off, and you limit the hours only to certain times, and then 3 months out of the year. According to folks that know water, I've heard that that's a very minimal usage of water. So we're working on that cost as well. But this is going to be very similar to how we built the playground down on the City of Concord Park, where we just built it and then step away. And I think that it there are minimal costs, and some of the meetings that we had with Kyle early on. There will be some additional maintenance, but one of the things that he talked about is a tremendous amount of time weed eating, and how the county can't use weed prevention.
Roundup.
Roundup,
Yeah.
right. So,
Right.
we do understand that, and there will be some,
And I think
additional.
The specific design is sort of to be determined, and I think we're looking to work with the county on those issues.
Well, and I think that we like the idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's the dirty work, rolling up the sleeves and making certain all these things are
Yep.
dealt with on the front end. Then what my concern is getting on October the 17th, or whatever the date is in November, and y'all are looking for us to agree with it, and these things haven't been fleshed out. And as I see it, these are the things that need to be fleshed out over the next 2 weeks or whenever, and I don't know how quickly these answers can be obtained. And I look at it differently in regards to the water area, the water usage, than what is the playground equipment down on the Greenway. And the reason why I say that is different is the flooring is rubberized flooring down at the kids' park. It's not water. They're jungle gyms, or they're kids' apparatus, which are very durable, that will last for probably 20 or 30 years. And here we're talking about concrete or pavers or some sort of structure that may not have the same life expectancy. But number one is the water, and even on the backflow preventer. How's that going to get? I guess that's going to be put in by the Wasac. So I'm not saying that I'm opposed to it. These are concerns that as I look at it, is if we've dealt with it and we deal with it up front, then how do we, we then make an informed decision about what the county is willing to do. Is it may be a liability that we're not willing to take on the liability because of the water issue. I don't know that. But I do think that's something that we need to look at. I don't know what sort of thoughts y'all have had in regards to the roadway on the backside, the drive or the road on the backside is what happens, how do we deal with if someone is parking there or something like that. And I think that when y'all say y'all are going to step away, then that's something we need to deal with on the front end. I don't know in y'all's plans if you thought about signage, what needs to be, what is, the signage up there. Let me see. And I don't think it's an issue, but I don't know in regards to the designs y'all have, is the ADA compliance. I've always think about ADA compliance in the size of the width of doors or access. This seems to be a relatively flat area, but I would bet my bottom dollar that if the federal government's involved and it's bricks instead of flat concrete, that if they're off by certain, but I think I would hope that y'all's architects have already thought about that and looked into that. So I don't know enough about ADA compliance issues, but it seems like that would, I would feel more comfortable if that's put in.
It'll be. It'll be built to building codes, and I think the building codes address the ADA. I don't think that's an issue.
I'm not saying it is an issue. It's just what pops in my mind as, has that been addressed and has that been thought out? Because, again, I don't want the final design and somebody says, well, county, you need to redo this, this, and this since y'all are taking on the responsibility because it's not ADA compliant, okay? And also in regards to the electricity, if we'd want to be on the front end of what sort of electrical apparatus, lights, usage, so that you look at it from, if we're going to have to foot the bill for electricity, if we're going to have to foot the bill for water usage, making certain that it's the most efficient use or know what we're getting into. That's all.
Sure.
I mean, those are some things that I was looking at it, coming up with in regards to concerns that I'd like to make certain that we have that addressed ahead of time, and that way we can and I don't know how quick a turnaround that can be made.
Well, a lot of the things that you've just mentioned, I think they have been worked out. We just probably need to get you more of our notes from the meeting that we had with the planning and the Concord when we met with the
Development Review Committee there. They had some comments regarding that back road there. I think the main thing that I'm pulling out of all that is the replacement factor, the time factor for the materials, which we haven't done a specific materials list yet, but we can certainly do that very quickly. Our intent is, of course, to build something of high quality that would last a long time. We're not planning to put up a shed or something like that. But our intent is also to work with the county in a lot of those questions. And, if the county wants signage or something like that, we want the opportunity to work with the county on those questions.
And then the final thing that I think is very important is I don't think that if this is something that the board would agree to do, that ground starts breaking until all the money's raised. We don't want to get into halfway through it and we run out of money. I mean,
we don't want that to happen either.
I don't want this to be. And I want to kind of get it out of our brains that I don't want to think of it as a park. I mean, there's an existing space there. We just want to improve it just a little bit. For example, currently the farmers market folks are off on Market Street in front of the police station, and it's not a very inviting place to come to a farmers market. And it's going to have extra sidewalk basically, and you're going to have some covered sheds. It's going to be less of a park, and I don't know how to actually define it other than just improving the pedestrian space in downtown, and obviously there will be that water feature there, but and I know there's some liability concerns with that, but I don't want to do it unless we have that water feature, just because I think then it would just be sheds. It wouldn't have that extra oomph to it.
Sorry for
Well,
monopolizing, but
No, you're fine. I mean, I'd like to see a timeline. I know that you and I talked, and you need something from us before you can go to the city, planning and zoning. Is that correct?
Well, we've been to them, and they are fine with our plans, but we need to obviously get it rezoned, I think, is my understanding.
So to go through the rezoning
That's right.
process, you would need something from us.
Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to see a timeline that shows all the things that need to be accomplished and
Okay.
kind of what order you think those things would be accomplished, and include the comments that Commissioner White put in there to make sure those items would be addressed. I'd like to see something in writing from the groups that you say support, some documentation from them preferably, that says, either we don't oppose it or we're in support of it, whichever way, that not just the Lutheran Church, but from the downtown merchants group, from city council or the mayor, somebody, to show us that there is support and they'd be willing to put it in, on a letterhead.
Sure.
I guess from staff, I would need to see something about what kind of liability we're talking about. You could provide something from WASAC on what they're willing to do in addressing not only what, they've agreed to handle the sewer issue, but we would need to know who's going to handle, like you said, the electricity and the water issue, and how that's going to go about. I guess more from staff than from you. We understand that you want us to handle the liability of it. I think staff needs to have some idea of, talk to Kannapolis, they have a water or fountain thing up there. Maybe they could give us some idea of how many accidents they have had, or what kind of liability they feel like something like that would encumber us for, because we need to keep track of that. I mean, I think it'd be a nice idea to do something downtown, but I'm not willing to risk anything from the county as far as that goes. And to open us up to any kind of a lawsuit. We are a very litigious society, and I don't want to open us up to anything like that. Right. So those would be the things, I guess, that I would look for. What are the steps that you need to accomplish, and what kind of timeline you have on the front end? And then, presuming that you get approval, what kind of timeline do you think you're going to have on raising the money, and when you would hope to begin some construction and have it available? If this were going to fall under our Parks Department, then there needs to be something in writing stating what they would agree to be able to do, and kind of the limitations on what they would be responsible for. Because somebody has to be. You can't be calling up here and ask for the county manager to be able to schedule when the fountains are going to go, because he can't do that. We're overloading him enough already. So there would need to be something, just some more details, I think, worked out and put down in writing, so that it would help to answer some of our questions.
Yeah. And I think that and I don't know how you deal with this, but I certainly think that we need to think about what are the expectations of the Concord Rotary Club after it is up and running and you've stepped away. And what I mean by that is, is the Concord Rotary Club, what is the expectations of, is y'all's maintenance expectations higher than what we're able to provide? And what I mean by that is, the blue on the label is not, we need to change the blue on the emblem, and y'all saying it needs to be changed. Well, I'm just saying, I don't think that would be an issue, but I certainly think that some people have different expectations once they step away, that you're not maintaining it the way I envisioned it. And I don't think that will be the issue, but I certainly think we need to have that understanding that, of that. And then the one thing I'd like to have a better understanding is paragraph 3 on your bullet point list. Mm-hmm. At the very end, it says restriction will be recorded limiting the property use as Rotary Square. Just a better understanding. I would think that what you're wanting is to stay as Rotary Square
for
ad
X amount
infinitum.
of years. Yeah.
Right. If something were to happen down the road, how do we deal with that? And I don't know what that would be. I mean, if I just don't know. If there's a big issue over there, is how do we deal with that down the road?
Well, that's just, we just want to, obviously, if we're going to put X amount of dollars in there, we just need to be protected for some length of time,
Right, and I think there won't be an issue, but, as Commissioner Poole is saying, is if the use or functionality of it changes, how do we deal with that?
Gotcha.
So that I just want to understand that a little bit better, so that
Okay.
if we both say, hey, you know what, it may be that we move that to another part of town or part of the county, and we're both agreeing to that, you know, we look at that down the road.
Got it. Well, I thank you all for your feedback, and I do want to say, though, that our Rotary Club is at a point now where we really can't do anything else as far as projects go until we get a decision. And I'm not twisting any, but we are at that point, and I understand that I have a lot of homework to do between now and the 17th, and if we can provide you all with that, or if you have any questions, I really would love to hear from you ahead of time, so that I can get what you need done. So just let me know if there's anything that I can do, because it would make me very happy if by October the 17th I could have a vote on this, and I will, as soon as possible, get everything that you need to make a good decision.
Well, the time frame that we work in is 1 week out, so that if we have the meeting on the 17th, we provide the agenda on Thursday of the week before. So next Thursday is when I think it gets put online. Is that correct, Mrs. Poplin? Wednesday. So a week from
This
will be October the 12th.
Got it.
Now, obviously, additional information can come in, but the preference is to get the vast majority of it, because we start looking at it, and if things change, we want to be able to respond accordingly. So if you think you can get this information together and organized by the 12th, then let us know. If you think you need more time than that, then
We'll just have
we
to-
can put it on for the 17th tentatively, if everybody's comfortable with that. And if we have all the information, great. If we don't, then we can move it up. We can roll it over.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Will it be lighted dusk to dawn?
Well, I think that's something that needs to be, and the lighting issue, the electricity issue is,
County gonna pay the power bill?
these are all questions that we have.
It'll almost have to be lighted all night.
There are current street lights there on the corner. One of the things that we were told in one of the early planning sessions from the county is they didn't want any other pole lights that you would have to kind of weed eat around. So we're trying to keep that at a minimal. But one of the things that we probably ought to have is some lights on the farmers market sheds or the sheds. So I will make sure that I address that question you have there too. So.
Well, I'll make a motion to place this on the agenda under new business.
We have a
And-
motion to place this under new business, subject to receiving the information that's been discussed today. Do we have a second? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. That's my notes that I've had in
Thank
regards to the questions that I have, so.
Appreciate it. And we
Great, some too.
thank you all very much. Thanks a lot.
Next we have is found on page 38, which is the Board of Elections, demolition, selection of architectural engineer firm. I would call on Mr. Billafer.
Yeah, thank you very much. We put out an RFQ for architectural and engineering services in March 2011 for the demolition of the old Board of Elections on Corbin. We received 4 packages. We have made our selection as Griffin Architecture. We want to come in front of the board to go ahead and approve that and be able to authorize the county manager and county attorney to negotiate a contract based on that demolition project.
Any questions for Mr. Billafer?
Make a motion to place it on the agenda.
Consent agenda or new business?
New business.
We have motion to place this under new business and a second from Commissioner Burge. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is page 42. Emergency management contract for methamphetamine lab cleanup.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're here before you today to request a budget amendment and consideration for a contract with CCI, a local company, to provide cleanup services for meth labs. The federal and state governments have ceased paying for this services and notified the counties and municipalities that we are now responsible to clean up these sites as we deal with those. The money we have found out we can get reimbursed through a grant process with the EPA, but that'll take about 18 months to complete those. So again, we're asking for the money for the budget amendment to contract with CCI as needed, and then we'll seek reimbursement after the projects are completed.
Any questions for Mr. Smith?
Is it 100% reimbursement?
Yes.
And so the $25,000 that you're requesting, how much does it cost on average to clean up a meth lab?
It
Any
depends
idea?
on the size. Some of your
I
mobile,
knew that was a
yeah.
yeah.
Of
Some
your
are mobile. Some
of
are in
your
a
mobile
car.
labs in the back of cars, anywhere from $1,800 to $25. Some of your home-based labs, you could get into about $10,000 to $15,000 to clean up one of those, depending on how much material is on site.
And the is their fee based on they will, it's kind of, they'll itemize everything that they do when they, if let's not say when, if they clean up, they would itemize everything, and it's based on this schedule of cost?
Yes, ma'am. It's
to determine exactly
based
what
on
it's going to
On
cost?
the contract, it's based on the hours for the technicians, the transportation, the type of containers that are used, and then disposal rates. One thing, the State Bureau of Investigation is still going to provide technicians to come to the scene, so they will help sort what needs to be disposed of and what can go in the regular trash. So that will cut down on some of the costs per scene. In other words, everything won't have to be just tagged and taken out. That the State Bureau of Investigation technicians will help determine before we have the contract company come out. So it won't be as much to dispose of.
Now, when we call, let's say that if we had to call them, does the clock start ticking as soon as we call them, or?
Yes, and that's why
So
we
they're
chose
guaranteeing a
local.
response time, because I don't want to be paying 5 hours for them to call people in and get set up before they've even gotten on site to do anything.
Right. CCI is a local company we've used on several projects. General Services have used them on several projects, and we generally have their staff on scene in less than an hour.
Can we put that in the agreement that, what I'm thinking of is when I've had to call somebody to come in and work on my furnace, okay, then they start counting when they leave the shop, and then they go by and get breakfast before they actually get there. Y'all are laughing. Now, you know
Electricians
good
don't
well
do
this
that.
is happening to somebody else in this room besides me.
Electricians don't do that.
The electricians wouldn't do that.
Then when after they eat breakfast, they get to your house and see what they need, then they have to go to the supply house and pick it up. Then
Right.
come back.
Then they go to the supply house and they pick it up. Then they come back and they're at my house for 30 minutes, but I'm paying for 4 hours worth of labor. So that would be my comment. I'm not saying that they're going to do that because I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just using my own little house events where you have to call back and say, okay, you were only at my house for 30 minutes. Now, this is a bit ridiculous. So at their rate, I mean, this is a hazardous situation when these are found, and we do need to get them cleaned up. And, I mean, if it's one that's been in existence for a while, we're talking some major effort. The walls have to be cleaned and everything. I mean, it's not just grab some chemicals and dispose of them. It's some major effort. So, I mean, I would like to be able to have something in there because I know it says mobilization to the site, that they would have to respond within a certain amount of time before our clock starts.
Yes, ma'am. We can put some
Ticking.
language. We can
Okay.
discuss with the attorney and Mr. Downs and see what language.
That would be a suggestion that I have, that there has to be. I'm not saying anything negative about this company because I'm sure they're reputable, or otherwise you wouldn't have talked to them. A question for the county attorney, I guess, is can we just enter into a contract, or have you contacted more than one company? I'm glad they're in the county. Do we need to contact other companies for bids on this type service, or we can go with just one without contacting other ones?
It's my understanding for this type of service, we can just go with the one that Mr. Smith is recommending.
And we did seek requests from other companies. None actually gave us any written, but one of the verbals I've got, the prices were a lot higher than what we're asking for here.
And I know you do a good job. We like to make sure everybody knows that you check the different options that we have. So the idea is that we would start the fund up. If needed, then we would apply for reimbursements, which would then go back into the same fund and be used the next time around or anything like that as it would be needed.
Yes, ma'am. And we did receive word last week that the state's looking at another program sometime next year. So hopefully they will take back up this program, and we can get out of this business.
A couple of things that I see that I want. Well, number one is because we're discussing it does not mean we have a methamphetamine lab cleanup problem. I mean, there is some meth labs out there, but it's not as prevalent as we're having to discuss today. We're just being proactive.
Yes, sir.
There is. I'm trying to think. In the past 12 months, I've seen maybe 3 cases of meth cases in Cabarrus County's court system. So it's not like we have a huge problem. Second is that when the I think I know the answer. In fact, I know the answer, but I want to make certain that there's not a way to look at it differently. Is when the person is arrested, any monies that are seized from them typically gets turned over to the federal government or to the state. I would like for us to look into, is there not a way that, or it goes to the law enforcement agency that has made the arrest. I would like, if it's a meth lab, I think those monies first need to go to us to clean up. Is that we need to look and see if that's not an option that we can do. Second is if, because of the federal laws, that the drug seized money is not able to be used for this cleanup, then I'd like to see that the opportunity be presented to the district attorney's office for the defendant to pay for the cleanup through restitution in some form or fashion. And all of these issues, I think, need to be couched in terms of if it is such a severe issue in a home that instead of having it, is it cost prohibitive to clean it up as opposed to tear it down? I mean, if it's a piece of property that it is run down already, why are we cleaning it up when it would be cheaper to tear it down? And that would be under our ordinances of an uninhabitable. I think that needs to be looked at. The concern I have is how quickly that decision has to be made with how quickly we can get an inspector out there. I mean, I don't know when cleanup needs to start, if it has to be started and completed within X number of hours, I don't know if we can get an inspector out there quick enough, and do we cause more problems for the county in regards to legal wranglings, in regards to tear down and giving notice and appeals? Does that create more of an issue in regards to a tear down? But I just don't think that if the cost to fix it is greater than the tear down, we need to look at that.
Yeah, there will be some issues just simply because a lot of the cleanup involves environmental issues. Mm-hmm. So whether you go through the demolition process or not, a lot of those issues will have to be abated prior to demolition. So we'll check on those.
So I do, and what I'm saying is it may be cheaper instead of abate it and then tear it down, just to tear it down, and I don't know how we can get rid of that safely, but my thought is let's look at the numbers before we just automatically go in and clean up as opposed to tear down. But those are some things to look at, is what I look at it as the issue. If we can get those addressed, I think we should go forward with it. We've got to go forward with it. We can't just sit down and do nothing.
How many meth labs are usually cleaned up in Cabarrus County in a given year on average?
I would have to check with the sheriff's office the exact, but the ones that we're involved in, 2, 3 at the most.
That's what I'm saying. We don't. It's there, but I would not define it as a problem. As something that we have it on a weekly basis.
What happens if the county says they're not going to do that? If we're going to contract, what guidelines are there that holds the county accountable for?
I think then it becomes a health issue
Right.
that.
I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't.
I know. I think we then become open to liability for someone that moves into that residence, moves into that home, or goes into that area. I think it becomes a liability issue that the county says we're not going to deal with it, and if something were to happen to that family or to that person, to the innocent person that's come in, they would have an action against the county.
I think it's. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying, and once we're aware of the situation, like I said, if we just decided not to do anything and then these items got dumped on a neighbor's property or in the regular trash cycling up, kind of like, I guess if we got called out for a bomb call and we found a bomb, but we said, well, we don't have the money to defuse it, we're going to leave it here. Like Chairman White said, there's responsibility and liability we would incur.
I just think it's interesting that the federal government and I guess state governments decided they're not going to, help fund that. So that's why. I think Commissioner White touched on an important subject about trying to recoup some of the expenses, whether it's from the individual or some of the things that are confiscated. I think be a good way to hold them accountable.
Now the reality is that some of these people aren't going to have any money, but to sit there and do nothing, I don't think that's not what this board is about.
At least be proactive.
Exactly.
Do they get any time for running the meth lab?
It depends on your record, but for the most part, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It depends on the person's record. Anything
Well,
else?
and some of these places could be rentals. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's the homeowner that's in there. So then you have those issues too. But I mean, you've got to clean it up. You can't just leave it there. If you know what's going on, because like I said, I mean, if it's someplace that's been in use for a while, it's on the walls, it's on everything, and anybody that goes in that facility is then exposed to it. It doesn't just have to be that you're purchasing the product and using it. I mean, they're very much innocent bystanders in this type of situation. And sometimes it's the trunk of a car that's driving around, too. So, obviously, those wouldn't cost as much to clean up as a house would, but, so side of the house and everything else, I mean, all that would fall into it. So, I'd put a motion to put it on new business.
We have a motion to place this under new business to receive the additional information. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next next matter is page 52. It's a proclamation acknowledging October as Cyber Security Awareness Month. Okay. You just want to place this under the recognitions?
Yes, I'd make a motion to put it under recognitions.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Under recognitions, we will adopt it in the October 17th meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to go back to number 5, which is the selection of the architectural design firm on page 47. Did I miss that? Mr. Billifer. This is a Human Services Building outfit. Sorry.
That's fine. Thank you, sir. It's a request for qualifications for the architectural services for the Human Services building upfit and the space that the Health Alliance is vacating in 2012. It was put out on the internet in June of 2011. We got 8 qualification packages back. After the internal committee made up of staff reviewed those submissions, we chose to interview 4 and have those come in. They came in on September 2nd. After the interviews, the committee voted, and we chose Yates, Kreitzberg, and Hughes. They were selected as the architectural firm. So I'm asking the board to authorize the county manager and county attorney to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board.
Any questions for Mr. Billifer?
This is for the plans for the building?
Yes, to do an actual full set of plans.
Is any cost has any cost been applied for doing that job?
For actually doing the renovations, no, we haven't even planned out what'll have to be done.
There's been no monies expended to select the architect other than staff time.
Yeah, that's correct. And in construction money or upfit money, it is a budgeted item. So
So the funds are already available?
they're already budgeted, yes, sir. Yeah, this is space. It's about 30,000 square feet, actually 40 because the crisis center will be moving out as well. It's about 40,000 square feet of the Human Services building up there in Kannapolis. We're looking to move several departments in there. DSS will need to expand, and we'll be able to close down the other storefront. They have another storefront up there of about 1,200, 2,400 square feet. We'll be able to discontinue that lease, move them into some of this space. We're looking to move transportation department up there. We're looking to move, I'm going blank here.
Part of aging.
The administrative offices of aging. We're looking possibly Parks and Rec may go in there as well, and the legal office as well.
At our budget session, we were talking about, this is something we talked about as a project that was, the money was already there, and it was talking about securing a parking area because of the transportation vehicles being in there and some other vehicles being in there. That's what we talked about at our budget session about what we would be doing, and this is now getting an architect to come in and to design the building. Do we have a motion to place this under the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries.
Excuse me, on the cyber proclamation, there was a request for that to be handled this afternoon.
Today?
Because for the entire month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and for that information to be
Okay.
presented out to the public so they have access off our website.
Do we have
I make a motion to suspend the rules and
adopt
add
the
this
proclamation acknowledging October as Cyber Security Awareness Month?
to- Yes.
We have a motion to suspend the rules and to adopt this proclamation. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next we have is on page 55 is Parks Department resolution of support for a Carolina Thread Trail DOT Tiger Grant application. I would turn it over to Mrs. Strong and Mr. Donovan, and also recognize Mr. Donovan as a sitting county commissioner in Stanley County.
Thank you. Thank you all. The Carolina Thread Trail is putting together a grant to hopefully be able to finish 34 miles of greenway in Cabarrus and Mecklenburg County. The section in Cabarrus County goes from Davidson down the Rocky River Corridor into Harrisburg, then Mallard Creek branches down into Mecklenburg County. Lindsay Donovan with the Carolina Thread Trail is here to go into specifics about the grant, the resolution. The good thing for Cabarrus County is there are actually no miles in Cabarrus County proper. It's all in the municipalities, and they will be the ones asking for the 20% match on this DOT grant.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. This is a request for a resolution of support that will be submitted with an application for these Tiger funds. Tiger funds are about building surface transportation opportunities. They come with an 80% grant versus a 20% local match. As Londa has said, and I'll probably repeat for a third or fourth time, we're not asking you for any money. The reason for these funds is to encourage not only transportation, but also to stimulate some creation of jobs in the short run and create economic development in the long run. We feel like, especially in Cabarrus County, we have the opportunity to encourage tourism, especially the location. And I believe you have maps in your packet that you can see a location of the route. Also, this is an opportunity moving forward to connect major employers, commercial, industrial facilities, schools, and parks. And so we feel like this is truly an opportunity for some connectivity and surface transportation. We do already have support from the communities in Cabarrus County. Concord, Kannapolis, and Harrisburg have already passed these resolutions of support, and we also have a resolution of support from the Cabarrus CVB. So we're here tonight to answer any questions you have and encourage that you also provide your resolution of support for this application.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Strong or Mr. Donovan?
Isn't this federal dollars? Federal funds?
They are. It's a federal grant, yes, sir.
Been borrowed from China, I assume.
This is similar to the other transportation funding that the federal government provides.
Well, I mean, the federal government don't have no money, so I assume they borrowed it. Correct?
I don't know that, sir. I'm here asking for support for a resolution for us to build a facility that will serve the citizens of this area.
Any other questions?
Looking at the map, is the I know the dotted line is what goes through Cabarrus County. Is there any portion of this that's complete that just needs to be connected, or what?
There are. I'm not looking at the map, but I think there's a box on there that says that the actual corridor total is 41 miles. It really actually connects to another corridor that runs all the way into southern part of Chester County, so there may be a total of 100 miles eventually. And I know that of at least 13 miles that are already completed.
In Cabarrus County, it's in the Kannapolis and Concord districts. There are a few miles that are being worked on at this time. There's land that has already been secured, and some that are. I think the City of Concord has a part of grant on one out at Moss Creek. That's right at a little over a mile. So there are some that are in the process of being worked, but nothing actually completed.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to place this under consent or new business?
Make a motion to place it under new business.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second to place this under new business. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is on page 60, which is the Cabarrus County Construction and Demolition Landfill Household Hazardous Waste Facility revised schedule. Mr. Grant.
Thank you. Cabarrus County currently collects used TVs and computer monitors at our household hazardous waste facility and the recycling convenience center at the C&D landfill. If you look at the fee schedule, which I believe is on the next page, we charge customers $5 for computer monitors and for TVs that are sized up to 20 inches, and then $10 for TV sets that are sized 21 inches and higher. This is to cover the cost of what the vendor has been charging us in the past to properly dispose of them, because they have to be remanufactured or demanufactured, actually. A new 3-year contract with eCycle Secure, who is our current vendor, is including a provision that there's going to be no charges for the used TV sets and computer monitors. Solid Waste Department's asking for the board for permission to eliminate these fees effective November 1st. Hopefully that when we do this, it'll be less TV sets going into landfills, which are actually currently banned by the state of North Carolina effective July 1st, and hopefully they'll be not thrown along curbside and things like that. So with that, I ask if there's any questions.
So I guess I shouldn't have taken my TVs already and my computer monitors. that
Wait
I've
for
cleaned
November
out of my
2nd.
house?
Only if you approve.
That's right.
I'd make a motion to place this under consent agenda. There's no need for us to charge a fee if we're not paying a fee.
No. We got a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Next is the Tax Administration adoption of the 2012 Schedule of Values. I call on Mr. Wiesner.
We have the schedule of values before you for adoption this month, and we are requesting that you adopt the schedule. Since we gave you the schedule in August, there's been a few changes to it, but nothing really significant. We have added some additional photographs to Chapter 12. We have added a section to Chapter 9 that talks about golf course valuation. And we have added some explanations to the Chapter 8 where we're talking about capitalization rates. And we have done a fairly intensive restudy of our base rates on single-family homes, and we have decided to recommend that we drop the base price on that from $70 to $68. And that would affect, there's about 10 use codes in our manual, improvement codes in our manual that will have a slight reduction.
Any questions for Mr. Wiesner? Last meeting we had several, I can't pronounce his last name. It starts with an O. But Jason came in and spoke, and he said he was going to meet with you. Did you have did he come in and get a chance to meet with you and go over some of his concerns?
He did, and we actually, in part of explaining to him how we go about it, then we did notice that over the past few months, the price of single-family homes has continued to drop slightly. Mm-hmm. And so we studied it some more after we finished speaking with him, and that's where we came up with the recommended reduction.
Good. Commissioner Burge?
You think the 68 is sufficient? Is it low? I mean, is it low enough?
It is low enough. And like I spoke with Mr. Jason about this, there's other aspects to the appraisal other than just the base rate. And so as things change, and we're able to react right up to the last minute if certain subdivisions have significant changes in December, then we can go back in and make adjustments to those values.
But if you're going by, say, a 1,500 square foot house sells for $100,000 right now, you're knocking off $4,500, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these houses has dropped more than $4,500, I know.
No, we're dropping more than that. I think I explained to you last time that the average of the single-family neighborhoods that we've worked so far, that we have about a 16% reduction in value, because you got to look at the big reductions in the land value, and then you've got other factors such as economic factors and different factors within our schedule that will reduce values over and above the base rate. And the base rate, the actual base rate, if you look at construction manuals as to what it would cost to build for what we call an average home, is about $75.50 a square foot. But we're using a lower base rate because basically we're allowing a certain amount of economic obsolescence just off the top and applying that to the base rate.
Say if you revalue a house after it's revalued, and you revalue it at, say, $200,000, then it sells for $140,000. Does the tax value go down according to what the house sold for, or is it going to stay at the $200,000?
The value stays where the market, this schedule of values would bring that value to. So you're saying that we value it as of January the 1st for $200,000, and then sometime next year it sells for $140,000. That we can't consider that sale. We're locked in for 4 years, or until we do another revaluation.
Well, say if half the neighborhood does that.
We cannot change based on the economy. If it's an economic factor that's due to general economy, we cannot change. Now, if something particular happens to a particular neighborhood that doesn't affect the rest of the county, then we can address that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Since we've already, I would make a motion to place this under new business.
And do we have to have another public hearing? Or I think we've had the public hearing, so it's now it's...
Now it's just a motion to approve the two schedules, the market value schedule and the present use schedule.
So it would be under new business. We have that. Any other? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. In looking at my agenda, it looks like we have completed everything that needs to be done. There is some opportunity if there is any updates from commissioners from the different boards. I do want to let everybody know that a couple of things is the Convention and Visitors Bureau is moving out to their new location on Speedway Boulevard, or right off of Speedway Boulevard, Weddington Road Extension, right in front of Great Wolf Lodge. And I think the grand opening is going to be on October 11th. think it's October the 11th. Everybody will be notified about that. They're very good about marketing. So everybody know about that. Second is that I wanted everybody to be aware that the Health Alliance has received one of 6 grants made to North Carolina organizations by Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation North Carolina to provide a dental case manager to help the dental offices that they're providing for Medicaid patients to increase education, awareness amongst their clientele. Also, Child Health became the first clinic in the Health Alliance to use electronic medical records on August the 23rd. They use an electronic problem list, medication list, history, and other components that will be able to be shared through different care providers in this community to improve patient care and reduce costs. This is very similar to what we have used at our health clinic for the county, that if you go to our health clinic and then have to go to the hospital, they're able to access the information so that it doesn't have to be recreated. So that's something that's been very big. And the Child Health has simultaneously adopted the American Academy of Pediatrics Bright Futures curriculum, the national standard of care for pediatric care. So that's what I have right now. Does anybody have anything else?
I just want to say a thank you to the CVB. There were some very nice folks from Killarney, that's the sister city for Concord, in town this past week, and the CVB was kind enough to send them a gift basket. And it was they're a good contact, and you're right, they do market a lot and they have access to a lot. So I thought it was very nice of them to send a gift, and the county manager was kind enough to provide them with some county shirts so that they have something to take back with them to Killarney and publicize the county, not just the city. So, and I appreciate that from the county manager.
Good. Anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a second? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.